Welcome back to another episode of Ultimate Potential, a mental health podcast. I'm Tony.
And I'm Craig.
And together we are, I was almost going to say, we are going to pump you up. Remember the Hans and Franz? That is really, really old. I'll bet
But
most of our listeners would not even know.
All right. Well,
we're here to do all things mental health related, right?
That's right. That's right.
And today we have a return guest with us, Barry Fell.
Our first return guest in the history of our podcast.
I think so.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel honoured.
Yeah. We
Thank
couldn't
you.
find anyone else.
You're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Yeah.
Okay.
No, Barry's a scholar and a gentleman and a longtime Telos professional, a partner here with us at Telos, LCSW. Barry, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Just refresh everyone's memory for all of our loyal listeners who remember.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, first and foremost. So I'm originally from the UK. I spent the first half of my life in the UK, and I knew nothing about mental health on an educational or academic level, although my parents raised many foster children. So originally we were a family of 5, but we were like an accordion. Sometimes we were a family of 12, then we were a family of 8. So we had multiple kids coming in and out of the home. So that exposed me to mental health in real time, mental health fragility in real time, but I couldn't have told you what was going on with anyone at the time. But in hindsight, I've got a better outlook of what was happening. I moved here when I was 22, and I've been working in residential treatment for the last 26 years.
Wow.
Worked at Telos for 20 years. I'm a therapist by trade, licensed clinical social worker. But my expertise is in parent coaching and adolescent inpatient treatment. And if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, could you ever envision writing a book? I would have said, that's the last thing I would have envisioned doing. It's not my skill set whatsoever. But what I've learned is if you've got something to say and you've got a passion about it, then you will find good reason to write about it. So at the end of, actually, no, it was last year. It was a year ago, February 2025, I published my second book, which is about mental health and therapy and the value of therapy. And so
your first book was called Consequential
Choices.
There we go.
Yep.
Consequential Choices, yeah. And that book was a niched book. It's for a very narrow audience. I wrote it for parents who were exploring residential treatment for their child. And no parent ever expects to sit in an admissions office in a residential program.
Yeah.
And my premise was you probably don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
So I gave them insider information, 10 questions you should ask when exploring residential treatment. These are the questions I would ask if I was to put my child
And the
in
answers you should kind of look
yes,
for, right?
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, side note, you don't know this, but we had a tour day before yesterday.
Oh.
No, it was yesterday. No, day before yesterday. Who had the mom had a sister-in-law who was reading off a script. And after the third question, I'm like, I know that script.
She was asking
She was asking the questions in your book about our program, which I thought was really fun. I had a big.
Somebody actually bought it.
Yeah.
I couldn't give it away. This second book, I've got a lot more passion about, and the book is called Therapy, a Life Changer, a Lifestyle, or a Waste of Time. And I wrote it because I've been in this space long enough to give some candid advice about how to make therapy a true life-changing experience. Because I think for many, as I've spoken to people anecdotally, there's been too many people who have said, yeah, I didn't really get a lot out of therapy, or I thought it was a waste of time. So it interested me, what makes it a waste of time and what makes it a life changer? And for some, it's even a lifestyle. It's become as common as going to the gym, going to the grocery store. So I looked into that. I thought, how did that come to be? How did that happen? So, yeah.
Could you hand me the copy?
Yeah.
So though, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is what it looks like. If you're just listening to this audio, I'm not going to describe what the book looks like to you, but
You can get it on Amazon Prime, and it's also in Utah County bookstores.
we will. And is your first book still on Amazon?
It is.
Okay, we'll in the show notes we'll link. I'll put links to both of your books.
Okay, thank you.
I've read this book. I've actually read both of your books, and excellent, excellent books for those who are just confused by the journey
Yeah,
and aren't quite sure where to turn or what to expect.
yeah,
I especially enjoyed this most recent book because, I am a therapist, and I know how I do therapy. But when I became a patient and actually went to therapy for myself, it's a whole other world. Right?
Oh, it is.
And it's like the brain surgeon that can operate on people's brains, but you can't do it on yourself, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think there's not enough information out there, enough clarity as to what makes therapy worthwhile and what makes good therapy versus poor therapy. So my hope was to create a yardstick for the consumer to measure against. Mm-hmm. I didn't want it to be a philosophical book. I wanted it to be a pragmatic book. It was for the person who sat on the fence going, is therapy for me? My intent was, well, if you read this book, this might push you in one direction, and it'll help you develop a framework in your mind as to how to make therapy worthwhile, how to get the most out of it.
Okay. So it's not that you go to therapy as a passive recipient. You just sit there and have therapy inflicted upon you.
Right.
You have to go with some determination and ready to work if you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah. So if I can tell just two brief stories, which really is the backdrop of this entire book. First story is my own personal story of 2019. I was in a situation which was new to me. I didn't expect it, but it ended up being quite a traumatic situation, and my livelihood was on the line. And I don't need to go into the detail of what happened, but the only reason I got through that was the supports that were around me. And I remember laying in bed, anxious, uncertain about my future, questioning, maybe this is my time to go get some mental health support. But I chose not to. I actually spoke to a neighbor who's an engineer. Mm-hmm. He's a civil engineer. But he gave me exactly what I needed, even though he wasn't a professional. So I think that begs the question, why not just turn to a friend? Mm-hmm. Like, why not just turn to a family member? When do you turn to a professional? Because my experience in that moment was, I am turning to a friend, and it was very therapeutic and it was very healing. And he didn't do anything magical, actually, but what he did do was more than enough. Mm-hmm. Second story is, so the second story is I am with a colleague in a cafe, and we're talking about our workmates, and one of our workmates was difficult. Mm-hmm. I think she had some personality challenges. So we were talking about her, and he said, oh, she needs therapy. Now, I've said that so many times. We often prescribe therapy for those around us, like, oh, they totally need therapy. Mm-hmm. And I paused for a moment. I said, I'm so fascinated by that question. Like, what truly qualifies her for therapy? Are you just saying that? Like, why? What do you mean? Why does she need therapy? Because she's got issues? Because if that's the case, we all need therapy. So what exactly are you suggesting? And that question stuck with me. Like, what really does qualify people for therapy? Because it's become so mainstream. It's almost become like a religion for some. Mm-hmm. And I think we sometimes run the risk in this mental health space of over-prescribing therapy. Mm-hmm. So I asked the question, I've asked it to so many people, when we suggest a family member or a friend needs therapy, what are we really saying? So I dug into that, and that was a part of that was the backdrop of the book.
Your friend at the cafe who said she needs therapy because she's difficult, right?
Yeah,
It almost reinforces a stigma and maybe drives people away from seeking therapy because, oh, therapy is for people who are broken or people who
Yeah.
are difficult or people who are annoying.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case.
Well, I did some research for the book, and come to find out, I did my own research. Come to find out, people who suggest that a friend or a family member needs therapy, it typically boils down to they annoy me, and I want someone to put them in their place. So it's less to do with, oh, they've got psychiatric symptoms, or they're carrying a tremendous amount of distress. There's usually a bug factor. No, they bug me, and I want someone to put them straight. That's usually what we mean when we say that.
Yeah.
If right, if we all had a dime for all of the couples therapy, right? Like husband wants the wife to change, wife wants the husband to change. They both, the other people need the therapy, but not themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And if only that therapist was good, then they would have already changed my wife,
Yeah.
right, and fixed her, so that then I can be happy in my own issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the common narrative. You know, it need therapy, want therapy, mindset of committed to progress and seeing therapy as a vehicle for improvement. Like you get these professional athletes, right, that have or Olympic athletes that really want to be their very best, right? So everything, the sports psychology piece is a big deal. In fact, it's probably the biggest deal. So do they need it? No, right?
Yeah.
It's not a therapy designed around it's not designed around pathology, right?
Yes.
It's designed around high achievement.
Yes.
And then you've got this, hey, we're all in this together. I don't really need therapy, but I'm not really happy. I'm not technically major depression, recurrent disorder.
Right.
I'm not suicidal. I can still keep my job, but I'm just not feeling good, right?
Yeah.
There's that kind of, want or willingness. And then there's like the genuinely need.
Yeah.
And there are some very clear situations, right? Person's suicidal, a person is clearly not
Yes.
functional, right? That a family system is not, and then we can, even if it's someone who isn't affecting us, right? Like as professionals, we get to see this a lot. Then there's a need, right? In order to stay alive, in order to stay functional.
Yeah.
So is that kind of how you explore?
Well, it's interesting you categorized into three distinct areas. There's the person who's actually quite functional, but he's trying to go from good to great. Like
Yes.
sports psychology's massive now.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 decades ago, it wasn't a thing.
Right.
It was rare at best, but now it's common. Nearly so many athletes have sports psychologists, and that is to challenge the athlete's paradigm, especially if they've got a fixed mindset and they think they've reached their limit, is to enhance performance. I've never worked in that capacity personally. I've worked in the other two capacities, and the other is the second distinction is the person who's functional but they're just not happy. Do they qualify for therapy? So I'll speak to that in a moment. But the third group is what I'm more familiar with, and that this is the group that a friend is not going to cut the mustard. They clearly need professional help. The people in the second group, a friend might do it, but this third group, no, it's not going to do it. You need expertise. So I dug into it and researched, well, what does qualify someone for therapy? And I boiled it down to four yardsticks that I would measure against. And it's hard to separate them out from each other because they're entwined.
Yeah,
it's like a ball
overlapping.
of wool. Yeah, they all overlap.
Comorbidity or whatever you want to say. Yeah.
So the first one is to do with distress, right? How much distress am I carrying in life? And we've all got these different thresholds for distress. We've all got different tolerance levels for distress. So, for example, I've worked with clients whose capacity to manage distress, it would fit on this bottle lid. They've got low distress tolerance. They don't do hard very well. It doesn't take long before they fold, where there are some people, you can give them so much responsibility. They can experience so much pressure, and they just never seem to crack. Why is that? Is it a nature-nurture thing? I'm sure it's a bit of both. But the point I want to make is all of us can be breached. Everyone's threshold can be breached. Now, once our threshold is breached, the second thing occurs. We can experience psychiatric symptoms. And those psychiatric symptoms are like a warning sign on a dashboard saying something is off kilter. Now, it's often the symptoms that are not the problem. The symptoms are a byproduct of the real problem, the way you're managing life, the distress that you're under, the pressures that you're under. But if you're under chronic distress and you're experiencing psychiatric symptoms, it's probably going to bleed into the third aspect. A distinction would be an unhealthy relationship with yourself, an unhealthy relationship with thoughts. It can taint your worldview. You might start thinking like, well, this is never going to pass, or this is a hopeless situation, or if it's not one thing, it's another. So then that negative self-talk starts to creep in. And those negative thoughts actually serve as a fuel supply to those psychiatric symptoms. And in turn, those psychiatric symptoms serve as a fuel supply to those negative thoughts. So it's hard to tease those three things out from one another. But I would say if you've got chronic distress and you're experiencing psychiatric symptoms that are getting in the way,
Right.
and I think that's a clear distinction, because I think psychiatric symptoms are actually a part of life.
Can you tell us a few psychiatric symptoms?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the most common psychiatric symptoms that we can all relate to would be things like irritability. I'm just irritable. I'm on edge. I seem to emotionally overreact to everyone around me.
Lack of patience.
Apathy. Like I just stopped caring. I don't seem to be motivated anymore. Things that typically you would manage and even look forward to, you start to dread. I first knew that I was experiencing depression in my own life because I started to dread what I would call baseline activity. Like I would be going into a leadership meeting, which I've ran my entire career, and now I'm dreading it. I'm like, why am I dreading this? I've done this so many times, but all of a sudden I was second guessing myself. I was questioning myself. Well, come to find out, I was struggling with depression. I didn't realize that. And why was I struggling with depression? Because my life was under pressure. I was experiencing real distress. I think another common one is self-loathing. I would say that's a psychiatric symptom. Feelings of uncertainty, not being able to tolerate uncertainty, not being able to tolerate the unknown. That would be more of an anxiety symptom. Bad sleeping habits, oversleeping, not getting enough sleep, poor eating habits. All of these are examples of psychiatric symptoms, but they vary in degree because you might have that on a mild level, so it doesn't get in the way. But if you're experiencing those symptoms on a moderate to severe level, they're not going to go unnoticed.
Isolation.
Yes.
Right. And extreme, like indulging into things that isolate you, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go into a book reading frenzy, right? Or sleeping or whatever, right? And not engaging in normal life
Would
activities.
things like substance use be a psychiatric symptom?
Yes. And substance, I think what happens, so when we're swimming in the stress hormone cortisol, which is common, doesn't take much, we want relief. And you've got two options really. There's two chemicals that you can go after. And of course, dopamine is the pleasure chemical, and it counteracts cortisol because it gives you a sensation, not satisfaction. It's got a short shelf life. Serotonin gives satisfaction. So when I exercise, when I achieve a goal, when I am intimate or close with someone in a relationship, then I'm releasing the serotonin chemical, and that's going to bring me this satisfaction. Well, guess what happens when we're chronically distressed? We're not feeling satisfied. We're not having that experience. All we're experiencing is cortisol, so we want quick relief. So we turn to typically our vices. anything that's going to give me a dopamine hit.
Shopping,
money,
porn.
pornography, substance use.
Substance use.
So your question was, is substance use a psychiatric symptom? It is, but it's often a maladaptive strategy that we're using to self-medicate other symptoms that
Because of a lack of serotonin.
because of a lack of serotonin.
So what's that fourth thing, Barry?
The fourth thing is unresolved trauma. Unresolved trauma, and I experienced the trauma. We've all experienced traumas. I'll be honest with you. I hesitate to use the word trauma too much because I think that word is overprescribed in this industry.
Yes.
Everything's a trauma, and all we've done is told a younger generation that you're fragile and you can't do hard things. So things that are now classified as traumas when I was a kid, no, that's just a part of growing up. It's a part of life, right? But how do you know you've got an unresolved trauma? Well, something's happened in life that you haven't addressed and you're typically trying to avoid. You don't want to have to deal with it. Typically, it's going to surface at night when you're sleeping or as you're trying to get to sleep because now your brain is in a state of rest and now you're going to get these intrusive thoughts and you're going to start thinking and dwelling and ruminating on this thing that's impacted you. You'll know it's unresolved because it will bleed out in some other way. Right. You either talk through trauma or you act out trauma. Mm-hmm. And when you're acting out trauma, you're experiencing those depressive symptoms that are a byproduct of the trauma. Then the substance use can be a byproduct of the depressive symptoms. But the unresolved trauma, there's a book that was released recently called The Body Keeps Score. And you're going to have to face it in some way, shape, or form. So I would say you would need professional help to face trauma, because trauma-informed work simply means, that thing you're running away from, that thing you don't want to think about, turn about, start thinking about it in a methodical way, and start walking towards the thing that you're afraid of.
Lean into it.
Yeah, start walking towards it and start acclimating your fears and your anxieties in such a way that you can think of the event that happened and it doesn't spook you anymore. It doesn't drive you away. You can say, it happened, it's a fact of my life, and I can actually make meaning of this. Mm-hmm. I can grow as a result of this. So again, to summarize, all these things are tied in together, but I would say a friend's not going to cut the mustard if you have unresolved trauma, if you have an unhealthy relationship with yourself and your own thoughts, if you're experiencing psychiatric symptoms and you're experiencing chronic distress. Those are 4 yardsticks where you might want to consider professional help.
So if a listener is hearing this and they're seeing a lot of themselves in those 4 things you described, and they determine, I this is it, I want to go to therapy. They go to therapy. What are they expecting? Because I know there's different types of therapists. There's different approaches to therapy. There's different cultures in different therapist offices.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, there's a difference between receiving treatment and receiving counseling. And you've got to know what you're after because they're actually very different.
Yes, they are.
Counseling, I would say, is a more generalized practice. Counseling is what I call emote therapy. Mm-hmm. So this is the person who hires a professional. They don't really have psychiatric symptoms. Everyone's under some type of distress, so they're probably experiencing some type of distress. They're probably just trying to navigate life and find more reason or more meaning in life. So what do? They schedule a therapy session weekly with their therapist who becomes their confidant. And this is just their safe space to go to. And there is no real beginning, middle, or end to the treatment. There's certainly no plan. There's no framework. It's just, I'm going to come and talk. I'm going to go talk to a therapist. And when I'm doing emote therapy, my session typically starts off with, tell me about your week. And I actually say very little after that.
Right.
And
affirmation.
Yeah. Asking questions, validation.
All that stuff.
I'm not doing psychoanalysis. I'm not trying to give meaning to what's being said. I'm just creating a space. And that has become very common indeed.
Yes.
So it's not uncommon to be, this happened to me. I was in a restaurant and the person next to me, on the table next to me, was speaking about, my therapist said, every other sentence seemed to be my therapist said, and she was speaking about her session so openly. And I think there's a lot of people who are in emote therapy and emote counseling because it's a form of decompression.
Yeah.
Is it healing? I think it can be. For some, it can be a lifestyle, but that's not treatment. Treatment is very different. Treatment would be, there's an assessment phase. I'm assessing what's happening. I'm assessing your life experience. I'm trying to listen through a diagnostic hearing aid, and I'm asking questions to try and boil down what is getting in the way for you, whether it be some type of diagnosis or some type of relational problem. But there'll come to a point where I'll say, okay, I understand now why you're here. Therefore, now I'm going to build a plan to help you get through this process. And that plan, it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, that plan is aimed to do one thing: replace maladaptive bad habits with new adaptive skills, tools, and strategies. Yep. Whether that be behavioral skills, emotional skills, mental skills, even academic skills, social skills. I am now here to equip you with a new skill set that will help you navigate life's problems. And then the final stage of therapy is maintenance, which means we've done the treatment, you've met your objectives, hopefully we've achieved a better outcome. Now we're just going to maintain the work that you've done. And as a therapist, I'm just going to measure and assess to make sure that this is sticking and it's working for you. Because eventually you're going to check out of these therapy sessions because you won't need me anymore. And I have a plan that has this clear beginning, middle, and end. That's not counseling, that's treatment. Very different mindset, very different modality. And I would say, if you don't understand the difference between the two, and more importantly, if the therapist doesn't understand the difference between the two,
Right.
they might prescribe you counseling when actually you need treatment, or vice versa. They might start to try and treat you when you just needed a safe space and an emoting space. So I think it's important to understand the distinction, and I make that very clear within the book because I want people to have a life-changing experience. I want them to understand there are two different frameworks that you're working with here. Unfortunately, in this space, I think there are some therapists who don't clearly understand the difference. And so this book was also designed to help the professional too.
So I have some friends who have given up on therapy because, when they look in their toolbox, it's empty.
Yeah.
And they need skills, but they go to therapy and the therapist kind of sits back and is like, so what are we talking about today?
Yeah.
And it's this endless exploration
Yeah.
and just kind of pontificating and talking, but it's not skill-based. They don't feel like they're progressing or getting any new tools to solve things.
Right.
So they've given up.
Yeah. That's more common than it should be, but yeah.
Yeah. I have this worldview. I do believe, when we've all been to grad school and got the license, right? And there's all these different theories, right? So that affirmation-based therapy is very common in the movies and the theaters, and very common with therapists who really believe that that is all people need. But in my own personal life, the therapeutic moments that I haven't paid for, and the professional therapy that I've been involved in, the most valuable always has to do with like me suffering. It's hard. It's no different than if I want to be a good athlete. It's no different than if I want to be good at anything. You have to push through the hard stuff, right? And so I think my belief is that if you're going to therapy to just find someone to validate you, right? And if you believe that the role of the therapist is to provide this nice, safe, comforting place to just kind of listen to you and kind of help you figure out your own problems, I think for that middle group of people, I think that might be good.
Sure.
But for people who are really in distress, like for the most part, therapy should hurt.
Yeah.
Kind of like physical therapy hurts.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
And it can't just be all strokes and comfort. Right. What are your thoughts about that?
I completely agree. So the term I would use is therapeutic tension. There needs to be some tension there. There's no growth in the comfort zone, and there's no comfort in the growth zone. And I think there's a misunderstanding that this is just about a safe space that's comfortable for me, where I can be vulnerable. I would say that's a fifth of therapy. I would say 3/5 of therapy is we're going to challenge some things. We might be challenging your worldview. We might be challenging something about your personality. You might have a blind spot that I'm beginning to see, so I'm going to shine some light on it, which might be uncomfortable for you, but you're going to have to trust me to do that. I'm not doing that because I'm trying to hurt you. I'm doing it because I'm trying to help you, and I'm trying to help you gain some self-awareness. So yeah, absolutely, there needs to be a healthy dose of therapeutic tension, or there is no growth, there is no development.
Right.
You have to apply a pressure in the right places at the right times. Now, I've known some therapists who've overcooked that as well. I've seen some therapists underperform in that regard. It's all about the warm and fuzzies. Mm-hmm. And it's all about me validating you, even validating and affirming your pathology. And I've seen therapists on the other side who, a lot of recovery specialists seem to be this way. Very harsh, very direct, very confrontational. And that's not safe.
Right.
If I'm just here to be
Beat up,
verbally abused, then
It's not trauma informed.
I'm not sure I'm getting anything from this.
Right.
But in the middle ground, there is this discernment of, okay, it's time to stretch and challenge you. There are three things, three qualities that I would recommend we all look for when going for professional help from a therapist. And one of the qualities that you're mentioning, this ability to dial up therapeutic tension, is, we'll speak to that first, meaning you need a framework.
Yeah.
You need a framework. Now, I call the framework therapy the science. These are the research-based methods that we know works because they've been proven. They've been tried and tested in the social science labs, right? We are measuring outcomes. Outcomes are telling us that there's symptom reduction if you use these various therapies. So cognitive behavioral therapy is a scientific therapy. Mm-hmm. Exposure and response prevention therapy, when working with someone who's got high anxiety, is a proven therapy, is a proven method. So the science is there, but the skilled therapist has an art form. They can infuse their personality and charisma into the science to bring it alive. Yeah. And that's what makes therapy different from clinician to clinician. It's not so much the science, it should be the art form. It's a problem when you've just got a therapist who's leaning too much into the art form. That has a short shelf life. When they believe, well, my charisma and personality is the agent of change. No, it's not. Your charisma and personality is to be breathed into the science. And the science should form into some type of adaptive skills outcome. Mm-hmm. That's where the real change occurs. So you need a framework. So if I'm going to go visit with a therapist, one of the first things I'm going to be asking is, tell me about your modality. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your framework. And I don't want to hear the word eclectic. I do a bit of everything, which means I'm the master of nothing. I'm looking to hear 2 or 3 modalities that you've got deep expertise in. So when I know you've got deep expertise in something, then I can get a good idea of what you can achieve with me. So if I'm working with someone who has exposure and response prevention expertise, okay, I can share my anxieties with you. I know you're going to be able to help me. So the science is important. You definitely need the framework. On top of that, you need some form of progress monitoring. Yeah. You need to be able to know what you're measuring. So a therapy session should start out with not, so tell me about your week. When we're in treatment, it's tell me about your symptoms this week. Tell me about the symptoms that got in the way. Are you experiencing any symptom reduction? Last week, we talked about you accepting things are out of your control. We talked about effective interpersonal skills, and we talked about distress tolerance. You tolerating hard things without reacting emotionally. Were you able to infuse any of those skills into your week, and did we achieve an outcome? So monitoring progress is a key part of a treatment model. And so many progress monitors, whether that's client self-assessment or the clinicians found another way to track signs and symptoms, mm-hmm. It's paramount. And that's what you're also looking for that in a therapist. And of course, the baseline skill is, can I trust you? Do you feel competent? And I measure competence, or I would gain confidence through professional competence. So I don't need to know about your energetic personality. I don't need to know about your extrovert nature. I just need to know, can you assess me? In the first couple of sessions, I'm in tune with what questions are you asking me and how deep can you drill down to understand my problems? So that assessment phase of treatment is key because you are assessing the therapist's ability as well. Are they inspiring confidence through competence? So again, therapist needs a framework. They need to understand therapy, the science. They need to progress monitor. And they also need to bring that competence, that level of competence, and inspire confidence through their competence. And to your point, within that framework, there should be a healthy dose of therapeutic tension. Yeah. If you're walking away and you're feeling, well, that was a great session. Well, why was it a great session? I would say one of the biggest measurements of a great session is I was challenged, I was stretched, I'm seeing things anew, I've got new insights. Yeah. Or I'm learning a better strategy for moving forward. Now, that's what the therapist needs to bring. Now, what do you need to bring as a client? Well, number one, you've got to be motivated. Imposed therapy doesn't really work. No. When it's imposed upon you, why are you here? Because my wife says I need to be here. It's probably going to be a waste of time.
Yeah. My parents sent me.
Yeah, my parents sent me. Yeah, you've got to find your own reason why. And the biggest reason why people are going to be motivated to do therapy is I need symptom reduction. Like what I'm experiencing isn't working for me. I'm not happy. I'm feeling distress. I'm feeling psychiatric symptoms. I need to feel a reduction in those symptoms. So sometimes I'll work with a client who doesn't quite know why they're in therapy. They've not got a clear motivation, but through the right questioning, I can help them understand this is why you're probably here. And symptom reduction is usually a big motivator. But you've got to find your why. Why am I coming? Number two, you've got to be insightful. And not everyone's insightful. So sometimes it's about the therapist giving you insight and you not defending yourself. Leave your ego defense mechanisms at the door. Those ego defense mechanisms are psychologically programmed into us to protect us. Mm-hmm. And good therapy will help you tease out what those ego defense mechanisms are and how they're getting in the way. And once you know what they are and you've got some awareness, you can begin to shelve them and be open to new insights. And then the third is the most challenging one. The third ingredient to successful therapy is capability. The capability to apply something new that you're learning. And some of the skills that you learn in therapy are high-level skills.
Yeah.
Some are low-level skills. Some are moderate level. But some of the high-level skills, for example, when working with someone who's got chronic anxiety, one of the baseline skills that we'll eventually get to is called thought diffusion. That's a high-level skill. I've tried it many, many times myself. It's such a struggle to do. I can cognitively understand what it is, but to do it, to diffuse from my thoughts and give irrational thoughts no power whatsoever, it's very challenging to do. So are you, as a client, capable of doing what you're being asked to do? Meaning you're replacing this old bad habit and vice, which comes so easily and so naturally, with this new intentional skill, tool, or strategy, which is going to take time to implement. A lot of people crash out of therapy because they're after instant results. Yeah. There is no instant result. It takes time and it's a process to go from bad habit to new way of being. So you've got to be realistic and be patient with yourself when it comes to capability. Some things will come naturally to you, some things will not come naturally, but that doesn't mean you give up on it. That just means you press hard and work hard to change those neural pathways. So eventually that becomes a habit, a new habit for you. So for the therapist framework, competence, the ability to inspire trust, the ability to monitor progress. If you merge those three ingredients with desire, motivation, insight, and then the capability, which isn't always there, but you can still learn it. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you can't do it yet. If you merge those three things together, you're probably going to have a good therapeutic experience. Yeah. You're probably going to walk away saying, okay, I got something from that. That was worthwhile.
Barry, I love the way that you describe this process that is so ethereal to most people and mysterious. There's anybody listening to this podcast who thinks, well, now I don't need to read the book, I'd say don't make that mistake, because there's more in the book. And the way that you lay it out is so clear. I'd really encourage our listeners, if you're so inclined, to pick up a copy of the book. It's an easy read. It flows very well. It's well written. And I would say, not only for yourself, if you're wanting to learn more about the therapeutic process, but even if you have a loved one who's maybe a loved one who needs therapy, give them this passive aggressive gift. But even for yourself, if maybe you've started a therapeutic process and you're feeling like you're spinning your wheels or you're second guessing, pick this up. It can kind of help refocus you and point you in the right direction. Yeah. Barry, is there anything else that you'd like to point our listeners to? Any other resources, websites, anything, causes that you hold dear?
My Jerry Springer thought would be,
oh no,
you. I believe that mental health fragility is a part of the human experience, and if you can get through this life without experiencing some type of mental health fragility, then you are the exception. So to go to therapy because you're experiencing symptoms or you've got unresolved trauma or distress, if you've gone through this life without experiencing that type of professional help, you've done really well. Mm-hmm. And we're now in a time and a place where mental health exposure and mental health talk is mainstream. It's thrust into the public eye. So I believe therapy is a life changer. I think you've got to know the mechanics of therapy. You need to understand what you're measuring against. Hopefully this book will help you measure against good practice. And there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. I've been in therapy 3 times throughout my life, and 2 for 1. 2 great experience, and 1 was a dud experience where I went, okay, yeah, it helps me to. That was one of my inspirations for this book. But there is no shame in it, and I would encourage anyone who is experiencing what we outlined as yardsticks, mental health fragility yardsticks. I would encourage anyone to go get some help, and with this guidance, I think you'll have a good experience.
I was speaking to a gentleman from the UK who was from an area that really didn't have mental health resources, and he was a policymaker. And I asked him, I said, so what do people do in your community, in your area, when they need therapy? And he said, the pub. The pub. And he said it tongue in cheek, but I think that's the danger of letting these things go unaddressed. So, Barry, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Thank you for telling us about your book, and you have some bragging rights now. You haven't written a book; you've written multiple books, right?
For calling 2 multiple, then sure.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you just for being, the type of human being that you are, right? Yeah. That is, you have dedicated your life to lifting others, and you're very good at it. So
thank you.
We feel fortunate to be shoulder to shoulder with you. So thanks for coming on the podcast again.
And with that, we will wrap up. And until next time, listeners, remember, mental health matters. Thanks for listening. Your mental health journey is so important to us. We'd love your help spreading the word so we can reach as many people as possible. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe here, on our social media, or wherever you access your podcasts. Thanks.